After the chaotic no contest at UFC 321, Tom Aspinall has somehow found himself branded as public enemy number one inside the UFC machine. Now, if you're a rational fan, you're probably thinking, wait a second, what did Tom even do wrong? The guy got poked straight in the eye, couldn't continue, and that's not exactly something he could control. And honestly, you'd be right. But it seems like Dana White and his loyal soldiers didn't get that memo. Right after the event, which turned into a total PR disaster, Dana went into full-blown damage control mode. The UFC's golden boy, Ciryl Gane, had just caused an anticlimactic ending, and the fan base was furious. Dana faced the media and dropped a headline-making quote. Gane had Tom bloodied up, and Tom didn't want to continue. The rematch is very interesting. That's it. No context, no sympathy, just that soundbite. I thought maybe it was clipped or taken out of context, but nope, that's exactly what he said. And when you watch the rest of his post-fight presser, it somehow gets worse. When journalist Oscar Willis asked Dana about the foul, Dana's first instinct wasn't concern for Tom's health. It was praise for Ciryl Gane. He literally said, a lot of people counted Gane out after the Jones fight, but he looked damn good tonight. Unreal. The man just nearly lost someone's vision, and Dana's busy handing out compliments. Oscar pressed further, asking how the UFC plans to handle eye pokes and whether they can tell intentional from accidental. Dana's reply? Who gives a F? What are you going to do? That's the president of the UFC, folks, the man who's supposed to set the tone for fighters' safety, shrugging off a potentially career-threatening injury like it's nothing. And Dana wasn't alone in this narrative spin. Over on the ESPN panel, Chael Sonnen chimed in with his own hot take. Fighting with one eye is common. You're the heavyweight champ. Sometimes you gotta fight with one eye. Sonnen said this while sitting next to Anthony Smith, who nodded along, sharing a story about pushing through eye pokes in his fight with Ryan Spann in Singapore. Yeah, Chael, great comparison. A 3-round fight for a top 10 spot versus a heavyweight world title bout. Totally the same thing, right? Here's the truth. I don't know Tom Aspinall personally, but from everything I've seen and read, there's zero evidence that he's some kind of quitter. The man had his eye shredded. Go back and rewatch that slow-motion replay. Every time you do, it looks worse. Ciryl Gane's left finger digs downward, catches the upper part of Tom's eye socket, then slides and twists out in this brutal hook motion. The right finger presses in shortly after. It's not a simple graze. It's a full-on double eye poke. If it had just been the first contact, maybe the fight continues. But Gane basically used Aspinall's eyes as leverage to push off and pivot backward. That second motion, that's what did the real damage. It's clear as day in the footage. Gane's fingers weren't just extended, he was tracking Tom's head movement with them. That's reckless, period. And yet, somehow, the online MMA community, notorious for its toxicity, turned this into a debate. Suddenly, every wannabe analyst on Reddit and Twitter had a take. Half of them were calling Tom soft, saying he was looking for a way out, or that he was going to lose anyway. Let's get real. Yes, the first round wasn't going perfectly for Aspinall. Gane was moving well, landing a few clean strikes, but Tom was finding his rhythm. He started chopping at Gane's lead leg, pushing him towards the fence, adjusting his timing. The strike count? Practically even. Gane led by maybe 3 or 4. If the round continued, maybe Tom lands one solid right hand and flips the momentum completely. Maybe he even finishes Gane 10 seconds later. We'll never know, and that's the frustrating part. But to twist that into a quit narrative? That's absurd. The guy's eyeball looked like it got scooped by a spoon, and we're still entertaining this nonsense? Please. What's really happening is obvious. The UFC's corporate machine is shaping a narrative. They're frustrated because Tom Aspinall, their interim champ, has become a liability. He's not playing ball. He's openly criticized the state of the heavyweight division, and his dad, Andy Aspinall, even said publicly that Tom might leave MMA for boxing when his contract is up. You think Dana's going to take that line down? Not a chance. Once word got out that Tom's camp was thinking about boxing, the UFC brass went into survival mode. They can't strip him without reason, but they can devalue him in the public eye, make him look unreliable, make him seem like a quitter. And that's exactly what's happening. So now, Tom Aspinall is stuck in this weird, hostile limbo, a champion for a company that's clearly not in his corner. From the UFC's perspective, he's a problem child. He made their poster boy Ciryl Gane look bad, embarrassed the organization with that no contest, and then, to make things worse, he's talking about boxing. The one sport Dana White loves to take shots at every time he gets a microphone in front of him. You can already see how this plays out. The UFC can't outright bury a guy who's holding a belt, but they can absolutely start turning down his shine, slow roll his fights, downplay his wins, spin every setback as weakness. It's a classic playbook. We've seen it before with fighters who didn't toe the company line. Remember Francis Ngannou? Same situation. The moment Francis stood up for himself and refused to bend the knee, they painted him as difficult to work with. They questioned his courage, his loyalty, his drive, until he left, boxed, and proved them all wrong. Now, with Aspinall, they're dusting off that same old script. Then, there's the Jon Jones and Alex Pereira situation. Literally, the night of UFC 321, the very same day the Aspinall-Gane fight ended, both of them start calling each other out online. Let's bring order back to the heavyweight division. Let's make it great again. Coincidence? Maybe, but it sure feels like perfect timing to steal all the oxygen from Tom's narrative. Now, I'm not saying Dana personally texted them and said, "Hey guys, tweet this now," but you can't ignore the optics. The UFC suddenly pivots all fan attention toward Jones and Pereira, two massive names with global pull, effectively cutting Tom out of the headline cycle. Imagine this. The UFC books a special attraction bout, Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, maybe for a ceremonial BMF heavyweight belt. They hype it up as the true battle for the baddest man on the planet, they plaster their faces everywhere, and suddenly, Tom Aspinall, the actual interim heavyweight champion, becomes a footnote. That's the move. It's the same game they played when they sidelined Francis Ngannou before his exit. Keep your favorite faces in front, push the inconvenient truth to the shadows. If I were the UFC, and I was thinking like a cold corporate villain, it's simple. Tom's unhappy? Fine, let's make him irrelevant. Either frustrate him into leaving or have him lose on the way out. That way, you maintain control of the narrative. No messy champion walks away headlines, no leverage for boxing negotiations. If Ciryl Gane somehow beats Tom in the rematch, the UFC gets everything it wants. Gane becomes champion again. Jon Jones still looks like the greatest heavyweight ever because he already beat Gane, and the promotion keeps a tight lid on its French market, which, by the way, they're desperate to expand. From there, it's a clean loop. Jon Jones stays the GOAT, Gane stays marketable, and Aspinall fades into the background. If he leaves for boxing, he does so as the guy who quit twice. Brutal, but strategic. Of course, for fans who actually watch fights and not just press conferences, the whole thing stinks. Because Aspinall isn't the problem. He's one of the few heavyweights who actually looks like the future. Fast, athletic, smart, technical. He's everything the division has needed for years. But that's not how the UFC thinks. They don't want a self-aware fighter who might question them publicly. They want company soldiers, not free thinkers. Let's also be honest. The UFC has a star power problem right now. They've lost a ton of big names to retirement or other promotions. Conor McGregor is inactive, Khabib Nurmagomedov is long gone, Israel Adesanya is taking time off, and Francis Ngannou is doing crossover boxing. So instead of building a whole roster of stars, they're funneling everything into just one or two names. Right now, mostly Alex Pereira. You can see the strategy. If Alex Pereira beats Jon Jones, that gives them a massive moment, the perfect torch-passing event to make Pereira the new face of the company. But that only works if Tom Aspinall isn't standing in the way. If Tom keeps winning, keeps holding the belt, and keeps talking about boxing, it ruins their setup. So how do you solve a Tom Aspinall problem? You don't strip him, that would look bad. You just undermine him quietly. You leak stories that he's unhappy. You highlight any sign of weakness. You let commentators and analysts talk about how he didn't want to continue. You slowly turn public perception against him until fans themselves start saying, maybe he isn't that tough after all. It's psychological warfare, not physical.
The UFC doesn't need to beat him in the cage, they can do it in the media. And that's the tragic part. Tom's not fighting Ciryl Gane anymore, he's fighting a corporation that's built to control narratives, control legacies, and erase dissenters. Behind the scenes, this sport can be more cutthroat than any spinning elbow or guillotine choke. If Aspinall does manage to come back, win decisively, and hold on to that belt, it'll be one of the quietest rebellions in UFC history. Because at that point, he'll have done something the company hates more than anything. He'll have proven them wrong. Until then, all we can do is wait and hope that the sport starts valuing its fighters not just for what they can sell, but for who they are when everything goes wrong. So yeah, let's keep it real. Tom Aspinall isn't a quitter. He's just a fighter stuck in the crossfire of a billion-dollar brand that doesn't want him to win on his own terms. Let me know in the comments, do you think the UFC is actually setting him up? Or is this just another case of bad luck and worse PR? Either way, one thing is certain. Behind every accident in this sport, there's always someone pulling the strings.